encouraged you to join the military?
What did what?
What encouraged you to join the military?
What encouraged me to join it? Well, I was in the draft. They had a draft back then, and when I was in the draft and everything, I didn't give a damn anymore. So I started spending all my money. I lost my job, and I run a pool room, and it burned down. And I lost that, and I finally went up to the draft board, and I told them, I said, "Can you take me in right now?" I said, "Can I join?" They said, "No, you're in the draft." And I said, they said, "You can volunteer." So I volunteered, and they took me in, and I got to be in the Navy back in 1943.
How old were you when you joined?
When I joined, I was 18.
What branch of military were you in?
I was in the Navy.
What years were you in the Navy?
How many years in the Navy? I was in there 2 years, I think, and about 6 months.
What was your starting rank in the Navy, and did you get any promotions during your service?
For what?
What was your starting rank in the Navy, and did you get any promotions during your service?
The biggest I ever got is like, start off as an apprentice seaman, and then I got seaman second, and I wound up seaman first. And when I was in, they didn't have no thing you could go. The only thing that could go up in the rank would be a coxswain and a bosun mate. And I didn't want to be that, so I just stayed seaman first class. Because when I got in there, I had this feeling that they told me in the shows you see, and I always said, "The captain, don't go down with his ship." And I was always scared of water. And on top of that, I didn't want to get in the Army because I was scared I'd run, the other way, and they'd shoot me in the back of being a coward. But if I got in the Navy, I wouldn't run because I was scared of that water. I was going to stay with that water. And I didn't believe what they said about a captain going down with a ship. I hope I got next to the captain and the admiral, because I'd stay right with him. And God took care of me. I was with the captain and the admiral almost all while I was on that carrier. See, my station was up on that island, if you know what a carrier is. It's got an island on the Westcott side, and it's got Westcott there, for reception for radios and that there on that side. And I'm sorry, I'm not telling you this there is because I went through 4 typhoons out there. And when you go through a typhoon, you really see something. That takes carriers, battle wagons, and everything. It takes them and lifts them up. Like you see this here Atlas lifting the world up, I guess there. That ocean lifts them all up. I mean, it don't leave anything behind, man. And it drops them like, and their screws are out of the water, and it drops them. And when you go down, you look around, and the water is 40 foot above your head all the way around, and you're in the middle. You think, well, I can go, but instead of going that way and getting you, it gets underneath you again and takes you up in the air like that again. It just keeps on doing that. Man, it's gonna. The last one finally, it took 27 foot of our flight deck and smashed it. It took 5-inch guns. It was about 6 inches in diameter, where it come out, and it bent them straight back. And it wound up. It took planes off there. They looked like they were flying off there. The typhoon was blowing them. They was anchored with like 3/4 of an inch cable. They got things on the flight deck. It's got metal that they tie them down, so when they bring on, they tie them down, blow them loose, smash that and blow them right through their airborne. And when you walked on that flight deck, if it was, gonna launch plane, you could dive and you wouldn't hit the flight deck. You know what I mean by that there? The air was so great coming through there because when they went ahead and took planes and they launched them and everything, and took them off, they got into the biggest way the wind was coming, and they had 30 knots, and they did 60. They usually had about 70 knots coming across there, so they could take off and get that wind underneath their wings, and take off real good.
What were your duties on the aircraft carrier?
My duties? I was a lookout. And that's when I said they didn't have no airport. I went through tests, and I figured some of the best eyes, and everything else, and I strictly spent, like I said, with the captain and the admiral on the bridge with them, or I was up above them with a chair that revolved all the way around 360 degrees, and you had binoculars mounted on them, and you wore earphones, cell phone all the time, and talk, so you could say if you seen something, you'd report it, everybody hear it, and you had them watching us there.
How did you think the country felt about the war?
How I do it.
How did you think the country felt about the war?
Our country thought about the war.
Felt about it?
Our country, or over there, I think they felt real good because, you know, I was out there just about coming in and they thought that when Harry Truman was president, and when he was president, that's when they used that there hydrogen bomb, and that there, and they hit Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They hit them both. And a lot of people in this world think that that was bad, and it wasn't bad. It was really, he saved a lot of lives because the Japanese would have never surrendered. They would have fought to death because when we was over there and took one island back, Marianas Island, Guam, Saipan, and Tinian, people rather, I mean families, they were jumping off the cliffs. They didn't want to be taken prisoner or anything by us. They heard a lot about it and everything else. And if the pilot went down and the Japanese plane, he didn't want to be saved. They had to hit him on the head with their oars and get him aboard ship. Then they had to tie him down so he wouldn't run and jump back in the ocean again. That's the way they were. And then later on, when they got to have kamikazes, and that was when they was getting sharp, you know, having trained pilots and everything else, and they get somebody like you that was 17 or 18 years old, and they got you so you could take that plane off. And when you got that plane off, they didn't want you to drop any bombs and come back. They wanted the bombs that was in your plane to drive straight for that carrier or that battle wagon or anything, drive your plane into it. That's the reason they call them kamikazes. And they wouldn't give up. They wasn't coming home anyway.
Did you have any relatives in the service?
I had one.
Any relatives in the service?
Yeah, I had two brothers. I had one brother in the Navy and one brother in the Army, and I had another cousin in the Army, and I had a brother-in-law and a brother in the Merchant Marines. And then after the Merchant Marines, one brother of mine went back in the Army. They wouldn't let him, made him serve his time, you know, in the Army. He tried to stay in the Merchant Marines, but they come aboard ship and got him and put him in the Army. Boy, they come and get you if you try to, you know, you belong to one thing, they come and get you.
So, did you ever meet any of them when you were
Did I have one?
Did you ever meet any of them when you were serving in the Army? Like, ever come across them?
I still never understood what you said.
Did you ever, like, meet any of them, like, when you were serving?
Oh, you meeting one of my brothers now? Oh, sure. I met that brother John. That he's gone now. He had cancer and passed away when he was about 62 years old. But he was older than me, about 4 years older. And he went to one of them, I told you, typhoon around the Philippines. And when it hit him in the Philippines, he was on one of them, you know, LSM. He was in what's called the other one. It was in building. He wasn't like me. I was in a driving force, driving the Japs back. He was building and stuff like that, and he was a signalman. And when he was on that little thing, like landing crafts and that there, he went down, and he was in that water in a typhoon, and he came to Ulithi, one of the mountains over there where we come in and drop anchor, and he got in there when he was saved in the trip thing. He asked if he could signal the Hornet, and he asked if he could come aboard because his brother was there. So they said yeah, so he come over, and I was really surprised to see him, you know. And he come aboard, and I needed him no clothes, and I was about 40 pounds heavier than him when I went in there, but then they took the weight off of me. I was 225 pounds, and when I seen him out there, I was 180. Because, man, you never stop sweating in there. When you take ammunition on and food, you stand there, and everybody that's in there, like they showed you, raise the Lord, pass the ammunition and everything. You were doing that, and when you hit this, because they was in a hurry to get everything on and get back out there. And when you did all this, mate, and being so hot, you would sweat, and it would go all the way down, and your shoes, and you watched it on the deck, you know, it would go across the deck like that there. Everybody's was doing that. Their shoes was soaking wet. And your mattress on them ships, when you got in there at night, it was soaking wet. When you got out, it didn't make a difference. And every once in a while, when they got like the Ulithi or Mogmog, one of the mountains, they dropped anchor to take food stuff on there. They would say on the, we had made air mattresses, you know, bring them out. Everybody put their mattress out there. Man, it was wonderful. You get in that thing, but one day and it was wet again. It didn't make long because it was just hot out there. As you passed what they called international date line out there. And sometimes you pass that on your birthday, and yeah, you go across it, and then you come back, you're coming again, so actually you put another year on and everything, because there's a difference in a whole year just passing that there international date line. And then you got that there witchcraft line up where they call it hotline, you know. Oh man, and that's hot. And then you wouldn't believe this. I'm gonna tell you something. It was why you wouldn't even ask me about it. That you believe we was fighting the war, and we were hit by the Japanese over there, and done a terrific amount of damage to us, and we were up there fighting them. And you ever hear of magma? I mean, what they call it, polywogs, and what's called there. You got to get initiated when you cross the equator. See, I got picture and everything else. They went out there, and I was a polywog, because we had more polywogs than we had the other ones that was been to sea. Like the board ship, we had 1,500 people, men, and they was like 300 or 400 guys that went across the equator, and there was 1,200 or 1,000 of them that wasn't across there yet. So we had to do everything. You had to go on the deck, and they put you in a swimming pool, and they had a guy in there, a big guy. He'd take and razor your hair and take it all off, and then he'd smear you with grease and duck you and everything else. Then they'd let you go. But then, of course, they took you before a judge first, King Neptune, and he would say, "What you here for?" And he said, "Drinking too much water or using too much good water, you know." And they charge you with everything, and they do that to you, you know. And they did that. And imagine when you were fighting a war, they almost spent 2 days out there. And what they did, took the American flag down. You know what they put up? Jolly Rogers. And stir, that thing went up there, and you thought, what the hell is the matter with these people? We're fighting a war. And they did that, you know, they got that up and still went around with what they always did when there was, you know, no peacetime. They went across the peacetime the same way. And went ahead and they swore in and did it. And being so many polywogs, we was beating the other ones up. I forget what they call them now. And they turned around, and the captain got on the microphone and told us, "Hey, all of you polywogs, you got to stand by and take your beating until you get initiated, you know." So everybody had to stand by and do what they said, you know. And you had to, like, kiss King Neptune. You had one of the bigger guys in the Navy was there, and put a big belly like me at that time, and they'd sit there and they had to kiss him, you know, on the belly and stuff like that there. And they had guys that was rolling around with a diaper on, with a load in it, like, you know, and he'd put it in a bucket, and then he'd get back up, and he'd carry the bucket somewhere and do it again. They had all that kind of stuff. And a guy rolling an egg on the flight deck with his nose, you know, pushing it down there. They had everything. And they had these things the same what the Indians had, you know. When you run the gauntlet there, they had these what the hell they call them? The Irish always had them, you know. They beat you with them, you know. And they had these guys that was past polywog. You had to run that line there, and when you run that line, they were hitting you with it. And then if you didn't run the line, you know, these are things that they shot when a plane towed it up in the sky. They had that down on the ground. It was wet. You had to crawl through there. When you was crawling through there, they hit you too. And I said, so man, you took a beating when you got initiated for polywog. Yeah, polywog and a shellback. Shellback, he was initiated. And polywog was getting initiated.
What was your reaction to the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
The accident at the bottom of Pearl Harbor?
What was your reaction?
My reaction was, well, I didn't know anything. I just figured I'm going in there. I mean, I wasn't over in Pearl Harbor when it happened, you know. And I was going in there to go ahead and get even with the Japanese, or make sure that we drive them back from the islands out there, because it was different than fighting over in Europe and fighting in Asia. Fighting over here, you had to fight these islands, and what they did, they'd hit these islands and they wouldn't take them right away. They'd leave them go and went past them. But then they couldn't get no supplies to them. They were out of supplies. And every time we went forward on there, like Iwo Jima and Formosa and all them, we'd leave us like truck. They'd leave truck go. And it was a big place for the Japanese. But then when they'd come back and they had bombs and everything, they had bombed Formosa, truck. They had bombed truck because they had all this equipment left. Bomb, and they dropped it on there, see, because it was Japanese on there. They killed them there. so that they wouldn't do any good, you know. But they just go on and force yourself all the way. And the worst place we run into, and I spent 60 days on the battle station up there, and that was Formosa.
What were your tours of duty?
Please?
What were your tours of duty?
My duty, yeah, my chores, I mean, everybody in the Navy, you just can't believe the Navy. In the Navy, you could take my food and throw it on the floor. It would be the same thing if I had the cleanest place in the world up there. I could eat it right off there. And that was while the war was going, it was that way. You would go there and they had everybody doing things that you would say didn't need to be done, and you were right. But you'd be so goddamn mad. They kept you that way, you know, because it kept you to the point to go against the Japanese to keep you mad. They would go there and it was steel bulkheads and everything, and it was beautiful. They would have you over there, they chipped every damn bit of paint off of that. When you think, what are they doing this for? The damn thing's beautiful. They chip it off, it ain't gonna be no better than it was before we took it off. But they did that, and they did it every damn time you turned around, they'd do that, and you'd have to go ahead and paint them and everything else and redo them, and then later on you'd take it back off again. But that was, like I say, a seaman first class, and I had to do that, go over there and do things like that there, and then stand watches, you know. I always stood watches up on the island. And see, I was up there at a point where on an aircraft carrier, you seen all the planes take off because you was right there. You were higher than the admiral and the captain, and you were up there where you could see them, you know. And you had binoculars, you could see right there, guy inside of the aviator, you know. And you see them take off, you see them when they come back. You'd watch them because they come in, and at nighttime, they had a guy down there that was, he was the one that landed the plane. The guy that was in the plane, that was the pilot, he didn't land that plane. The guy that landed that plane was that guy down there at the end and the rear, aft of them. And he'd be in a little place there, and he'd have the flags, you know, and they'd watch him, you know, he'd have them flags going like this, and get it like that, they knew they was doing right. And when he dropped them, they cut their engine. And when they cut their engine, they come in with their tail, you know, dragging to get that their cables going across there, which stop them before they didn't hit them and get hooked. They'd go forward, and they had 3 rows of cables that they'd get in their props. You know, we had props now, we didn't have these ones they got like now. And it would, you know, save them and everything, but they'd have to patch the plane and stuff like that there. And then what would happen a lot of times, you had Marines aboard the aircraft carrier, and there was about 80 Marines, I'd say it was on there, and they manned like 20 millimeters. And they were over there on the port side, starboard, and they would be there, and just where they had 20 millimeters in man, their head was just about that high, about even with the deck. Well, when that planes would come in and hit that thing, and that prop would break, and them guys were watching, and they know that would break. You figured, oh, it would break. It broke, went across there and took their head off. I mean, you had some of them that way that died, and then you had this their F-6Fs and F-4Fs that was coming in, the fighter planes, and you had the TBF Avengers, and they'd come in and they hit the deck, and when they hit the deck, the guns would go off, you know, they'd hit them and they'd fire, and you had to watch it. And then you had the same thing with the TBF Avengers torpedo bomber plane. He'd come in, he'd have a torpedo in there, and he couldn't jettison, he couldn't get rid of it. And they should have let him go in the ocean, but they thought, well, he'll come here and he won't go through it. But when he hit that deck, that torpedo come out. And when that torpedo come out, I was up there, I seen it come out. I hit the deck, man, I thought, this gonna blow that damn flight deck up. And I hit it, and this guy's jumping on top of me, you know, I said, come on, jump off me. I don't care, but then they had a demolition crew. The demolition crew run out, and they were terrible when something happened to them, because when the fighter planes would come in, they had this 100-pound demolition bombs on the wing that you did drop. Well, they had some of them, but they couldn't jettison. When they hit that deck, they had airdales, they call them, that when these planes would land, they had to run out there right away. They were standing right there and disengage that tail hook so he could go forward, you know. And they'd be out there, and when I hit the deck, and they were running out there disengaging that 100-pound demolition bomb, bounced on off, and they'd put a hole in the flight deck like that, and it killed them, our guys that come out to take that off there. We had more killed by on our own planes doing things that we had from the enemy, you know. And they had that, and then, like I said, they had that torpedo when it came out. The demolition crew went up there, and they real fast disengaged it. You know, when they got it disengaged, they turned it over to the side. I think it was, let's see, almost 2 years out there before I ever come home again.
Wow.
Out there, they took us out, and we was, like I said, in the Atlantic Ocean, Chesapeake Bay down there, and we went ahead and went through, and we went through the Panama Canal. And the Panama Canal, to get into the Pacific Ocean, that carrier is so big that when I went through the Panama Canal, where the Marines were, I told you was there on the 20, whatever that, those hit the side of they were on top of that there canal, and they had to watch it because they hit the side on top of it, like, you know. And they go through there, and they had that other part that they cut through, you know, that they didn't have the locks, and they could go there until they got in the Pacific Ocean. But when you got out there, you spent, like I just said, guys spent like, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it was, when I got out there and how things went. See, I got out there from the time they started the truck. They had, like I told you before, they had truck beat, and all they do was hit the bombs with the back. And I went from there on, you know, the Marianas Islands, that's Guam, Saipan, Tinian, and Iwo Jima, where they had that raising of the flags and that there, at Bonin Islands, we went there. Then we went to Formosa and hit them. And then we went to this one that was, it wasn't Formosa we hit at the time, the other one, it was, it's the one where they had these Navy guys that got in trouble, you know, here with the women and everything that there's over there. And I just met my grandson's brother-in-law or something, or her cousin, that married a girl from over there. And I said, oh yeah, I remember that. I said, that's the worst place we spent. We spent a lot of times on our battle station up there on that something, I forget what it is though. It's a big, big thing. I mean, it's a really a big place, but they finally, you know, they took over and did it all right. Because at one time, I tell you, the fleet was so big out there, even before they dropped them there bombs up there at Nagasaki and out there, that fleet, when it went through on the ocean, as big as the ocean was, that fleet took up, I would say, broadside, all the way across. You look at them with binoculars, you can see them like 10 miles away, and this and that there. That fleet took up about, I would say, 150 miles of coverage of that ocean. And anything there, when that fleet moved ahead, forward, it wasn't there when they went by, because they sunk it. They sunk every damn thing in that ocean that was in their way. They did. They did a lot to these Koreans that they're talking about now. See, the Koreans were sort of not against us, but they was involved with the Japanese. The Japanese sort of had a control of them, you know, at that time. So we had a little bit with them too. But I had 6, 7, I think I got some books in there. I had about 7, 8 times around the world that I spent on her. To go around the world is 25,000 miles. And if you go 12,500 going west, you'll hit east at 12,501. You're going the other way, see, because that's going around the world. And I think I went through 8 times or something like that. I went around the world, and I got things. See, and then when you go with this ship, see, the Hornet I was on was the second one that I know of. Mm-hmm. The first one, they sunk that in the Battle of Santa Cruz, and the Japanese didn't sink it. What happened to it, it got disengaged. And see, that was the one that they took these B-25 bombers off of and went over and bombed Japan. It was that one. I wasn't on that one. I got on the next one after that one. So then the Japanese disengaged that old Hornet, and when they did, instead of leaving it sit there and the Japanese would get it and use it against us, they threw all the damn bombs, they disengaged, they opened all the what do you call it, and they used a pot and everything, you know, and everything was little rooms on these ships, and that was the reason they were hard to sink. And they opened everything up, and I had it mine, I forget. They opened all up and they'd sink easier. That was terrible. And I thought, they ain't getting me in there, because I figured, you know, them guys was figuring, you know, the money they were gonna pick up, you know, and they wouldn't be taken in there. Then they wound up, they had Vietnam, they had Korea, and then they got this now going on, and the ones they got in this war fighting over there and everything, they're all the ones that got in the reserves and stuff. And you got a hell of a lot of them are jumping, you know, trying to get the hell away from them because they don't want to go over there. And I don't blame them one bit, because we shouldn't be over there to begin with. We shouldn't be over there. See, these papers are 60 years old.
Huh.
I mean, there were ships written on there. And all these papers are 60 years old. This is I got my scare now because I wound up, I've been feeling bad, and wound up going over there with the VA, and they got me with cancer. I got cancer in my lungs, and I got cancer up here, you know. So I started taking treatment more.
That's what.
This was in the Navy. That's what you gotta have if you're a polywog and that. I told you, you know. And this, it's got the cover of it. This is a book of the USS Hornet. It shows what they did on there and everything else, or different pictures and everything. This is the ship that was on there, everything they did when I was on it, you know. And different things, and they got that. That's a book of the Hornet. And that one there, see, on the USS Hornet, and when I got in there and when they taught me, you put it, you know, you commission, you know, that's never been commissioned before. And you get on it, and the first one on it, you put it in commission, and you are a plank owner. I got little cards and everything. I own a plank on the USS Hornet, and all that stuff, you know. I said, they got the Hornet up there in San Francisco not too long ago. But now they got these ones like old Clinton, and they got these other ones that they named, and they used to hold like 2,000 people, or whatever. We have a lot of people. Now they hold 5,000. Man, they got big carriers. And see, and then they got this new fuel they use, that's what they call it, atomic or whatever. They put it in there, and you take the submarines now. They used to have to come up. Them submarines now using this fuel, they can stay underneath there for half a year.
Is it the nuclear?
Oh, I said, man, I'm glad. That's one thing I didn't want to get in the Navy submarine. I said, I didn't want to go underneath that water. No. These papers are from 1946. Yeah, they're 46. They're from San Francisco. They're getting old. And these are maps they give you and shows you what you was on and where you was going, you know, in an area, like they had them in there, all them areas that you was traveling to. You can have it if you want to look to them, as long as you bring them back. I mean, it's strictly a lot of letters I wrote to my sisters and everything. It's on the back of them, but it was what they had said, you know, that we could go ahead and send home, but they put on there, you know, in front. Because my mother and dad was gone, I just had my sisters in there, you know. And even got the ones from JFK, you know.
Wow.
When he was killed and gone.
Uh-huh.
These are all ones that it was, like I was telling you, that It's letters from air, and this is another paper. See?
Uh-huh.
But that's the one that was like 1946. That's when they settled everything on the USS Missouri.
Mhm.
They settled everything in peace with the Japanese and everything. And I was up in California, San Francisco. That's when the war ended. Because the last typhoon we went through was tearing it apart, man. I come across and they took our antennas, and them antennas were about 60 foot high, and just cut them right off the ship, man. That water, that's worse than fire. I'll tell you about water takes over it just put the fire out and nothing flat, and still we going strong. They say that they haven't really been around and seen everything in the Pacific Ocean yet. And I don't think they have either. That Pacific Ocean is big. Oh, it's big. I mean, and you don't think much of, like they tell you, horizon. When you look here, you don't pay any sense to the horizon. But when you're aboard ship, I don't think if you're taking a cruise or you're fighting out there and you look, you got a thing like a dome, that you're in. And it looks that way when you look, and it comes down on the ocean, hits the water all the way around, same spot even. And you can look there, and you'll not see a ship or nothing, and the first thing you know, you'll see a mast or something coming up, and it'll start getting clear, and it's getting fast, because the horizon is usually basically 10 miles from where you're at. It's 10 miles away, and they're coming up. And then when you get closer, you can see them more, Like Columbus, he said, listen, that there are ones when they said about round, it is round. See, and this is a bucket, it's a USS Hornet. There's a back page to it. These are all papers and this is the one here this one here is the one that tells you. Daughter stole my glasses. I don't know if she kept them. Sir, I can't see. I was just going to tell you. There it is. There's what, in the period of time I was on there in the back here, it steamed 168,000 miles. And I was on there 168,000 miles because when they're out, they don't stop. They're moving all the time. So that's equivalent to, 6 times around the world in this thing. Almost 7 times around the world. Iran, that stuff like that there. See, actually, if you want to, and I'm not condemning anything, but over there and on land, like fighting Hitler, you had more land. It was like the Army and the Marines. The Navy was there, but the Navy was on big ships, and they bombed them and everything and fired at them, because these battle wagons, when they fire a shell, they can fire that shell 24 miles. And that shell, you ought to see that shell. And see, they can't do that on land. Because on land, it would break up the cannon and everything, but on a ship, when a battle wagon is like 45, 50,000 tons. And when they fire them 24-inch guns, it takes them like this and shoves them back. If they're going forward, it stops them, but it don't hurt them because they're in that water, seeing it lets them like spring, it lets them go. So, yeah, I said when I got out, started having a family. Come on in. You're saluting the flag. You ain't saluting that guy, but they're full of blooming sauce. And even in the Navy, them guys, not all of them are away, but a hell of a lot of them, you're saluting him. That's not the flag. You better salute him. And things that you do, I'm like cleaning up, like I told you over there, and they got drinking water fountains, and it's hard to make the water, change that salt water, and you can drink and stuff, or take a shower. See, when you took a shower there, they had guys watch you take a shower, and they only allowed you like 5 minutes in that shower. You was in and you better be out, because they don't want you using that water up that much. And they had that deal going, and you drinking, well, over there, they had drinking water fountains, you know, and over there working, you get thirsty, you took a drink. I took a drink over there one day, and one of them officers, it was a warrant officer, and he jumped me right away, and he was gonna put me on report. He's gonna put me on report because I took a drink, and he said, you ain't allowed to drink out of these. Well, you gotta go back in the enlisted man's quarters and take a drink. I said, I'll go back where I said, well, I'm working right here, I can't. Oh, I said, then I really got mad. I said, you ain't getting me in this Navy, you ain't winning that, because I didn't believe in that shit when I work. I've been in a union all my life, and I think that they should pay for the work you do and give you a decent wage, not a, and that's the same way with them people, as lieutenants and that. I didn't mind saluting them as long as they did what they said, but some of them weren't that way. And I thought, I ain't staying in here, I'm getting the hell out of here as soon as I get home, you know. And I got discharged, coming home to California, and then I went to Great Lakes, and the Great Lakes got my final discharge. And I had my ruptured duct they put on you that showed you was in there. And then I come out here, and I had to even stand to sit on my suitcase. That's how crowded it was, you know, with traffic and coming from Chicago to Cincinnati. And when I got off of there, I had drinking too and everything. I was half loaded. And I got off there and I had one of them shore patrol, you know. They said, hey man, he said, I want to tell you something. You're a disgrace to the uniform. And I said, kiss my. I said, you see that, don't you? I don't have to listen to you no more. That's a ruptured duct. I don't belong in this Navy no more. I'm a civilian. I give them $25 for Christmas, so I said, here. I had a 50. I said, I took the 20 and 5. Give me that 20 and 5, and I'll give you the silver one. Well, they didn't want to give it to me. It's 3 years old, you know. And then finally, she looked at more she talked about. I said, you know what this is, don't you? She said, $5. So I said, yeah. So she finally took it, and she's holding on to it. She put her name up. So I told her today, I said, I got these. And I said, oh, there you are. I said, I'll give you 3 of these, 3 rolls of these here for that $50 bill I give you. She said, oh no. She said, I don't want to swap with you. She ain't gonna swap. And she'd have $75, you know, instead of 50. But she ain't swapping. She wants that 50. And I had a little card that showed you I was a shellback. I wasn't a polywog anymore, I was a shellback. In other words, when we crossed that again, I tormented them guys, you know, did what I wanted to do to them and got by with it, you know. But that, if you want to go through any of this stuff, you're more than welcome to. I mean, it's pretty old, but, you know, like that paper's 60 years old, 61. And they finally settled the war. Oh, people went up there and settled the war up there. They went crazy up there. I had one guy that was another sailor. He hit me about 3 times, and I thought, where the hell is he hitting me, you know? And I finally turned around, and he hit me again, and I thought, and he was fast, you know. I thought, man, if I get hold of you, you ain't going nowhere. I got hold of him, man. I put him down on the ground, and I was sitting on him, and I was giving it to him up here, saying they had other Navy boys come up and take me off of him so he could get off. I said, I didn't hit him. I said, he's the one that hit me, you know. But they had that, and they set machine guns up on the top of the buildings in San Francisco. They went ahead, and some of them sailors got together, and they took them streetcars, and they lifted them right off the track. You wouldn't believe it, they could do that, but they can. I mean, they get that many on there, they can pick it up. I said, man, I didn't do anything like that, but that's the way them people are sometimes. And they had them fountains, you know, there. Some of the women ripped up and got in them fountains nude. And that thing was solid. You couldn't hardly move. They was all over that because the war was over. I said, holy Hannah. I said, I'm glad it's over. I want to go home. But I got there in California, and I got transferred off the Hornet, see? And I thought I only needed about a half a point or a point more, and I could discharge it. You know what they did to me? They shipped me back out in the Pacific Ocean. They shipped me out there, and I went on one of them LCMs, you know, in that ocean, man, they plow through that water because they ain't got no, you know, cut it. They had, like, they got a blunt end, they just hit the water, you know. Plowed through that water and got over there to Pearl Harbor, and went again all the way to the, what the hell islands were, it was Anahuac and Marshall Islands. I went over to the Marshall Islands over there, Anahuac and that there. And they put us over there, and as soon as I got over there, my time was up. And then I stood there and I kept on trying to get a discharge or try to get, you had to try to get somebody to pick you up and bring you back here so you could get out of there. And they wouldn't stop and pick you up and this and that. And I was on there and I had an ensign. He was in charge of that thing. He was the captain. And I was in command right underneath him, seaman first class. And what I was on them was a floating dry dock. And they had what they call the USS APSD-7. And it took 7 sections. And one of the 7 sections, you know, would alternate and drop their water some way and get together. They would take any ship in the ocean, right out there in the ocean, and work on them and turn them loose. And they could do it too, boy. And I thought, I don't give a damn, they can do it, I want to get home. So I finally got a ride home on a CBL. That's an aircraft carrier. That's what it was converted from a cruiser into, you know, an aircraft carrier. And I got on one of them going home, and they had me, you know, paint, you know, and I painted that thing like, I couldn't paint like that when I did the other one. I just emptied the damn deck of paint, and when the ship would roll, it would paint, you know. And I thought, hell, what am I gonna give a damn? They ain't gonna do nothing to me anyway.
Okay, ask your question.
Did you take part in any battles?
Hmm?
Did you take part in any battles?
Any battles? Oh, yeah. We fought one that they go ahead and they launch planes, they first, when you're out at sea. And all the carriers launch planes, and they said that the fleet, Japanese fleet, what they was gonna go after, was only like 300 miles away and 300 miles back. They had enough fuel to make that. Well, they were wrong. It was further out that they were, so when they had, we were further out, and they made their bomb runs and everything, did all right. But then when they come back to land, they were all running out of fuel. They were going around, you know, landing on the carriers and that there, and they were, any carrier was taking any plane. I mean, just to get him so he wouldn't wind up in the ocean. And finally, Nimitz over there, Admiral Nimitz, he said, light them up. So every ship in that fleet that you wanted to see something was beautiful, that whole damn ocean lit up, boy. I mean, so that them planes could come in and land. And that guy that was landing them, see, he would, at nighttime, he wore what they call phosphor flags. And you didn't see him, but you see them flags moving like this. And when he'd go like that, they wouldn't land, you know. And when he did them like this, they were coming in there right by the flight deck. And he dropped it like that, they cut their engine and land. And that's what I said, that guy that was there. And a lot of times he was close when he'd wave them, they were close to him, and he had like a big old galvanized net like and everything that he jumped in, you know, that he wouldn't go off the ship. He jumped in it, would clear him of that plane, so it wouldn't hit him with a propeller or anything like that. What you call it, I was talking about, and not foremost, damn it, what is? Well, we hit the Bonin Islands and fought, and we, see, when you get out there, and after you're out there on the Pacific Ocean, you think everything's hot out there. That ain't so. Japanese and Japan's got the same kind of weather we got. And when you get out there and start towards them, and you've been hot all the time, you've been on board that ship, and you start hitting that, it's cold, man, it is really cold. And you think, oh my God. And that's when it was like that. At the Bonin Islands, it was cold, you know. So you'd hit the Bonin Islands and you'd run. You'd go in there and you were hitting, let's go out towards the end. You were hitting Japan, you were hitting this one that fought like hell. And I can't think of the name of that. And it ain't Formosa. Formosa, we fought down there, and that was controlled, but not too much controlled by the Japanese, because they had the headhunters over there in Formosa. And I mean, we lost a cruiser right there, that USS Pittsburgh. See, all the cruisers at that time was named after cities. And battle wagons were named after states. And the carriers were named after, like, what the hell, like insects. See, our ship was USS Hornet. and the USS Wasp. See, they hit the Wasp out there when we was fighting one day, and I had my binoculars, and a damn Japanese kamikaze come down, and they had like 40 planes up there with torpedoes and everything, you know, ready to take off. And that damn kamikaze hit that thing right in there. They damn near dropped 1,000 people in that damn ship, that thing. And I watched them for days take, and now, you know, you find out what do you do with the people while they die here. You ain't got this space, you gotta bury them. That's the best place to take them, the ocean. Because you drop them in the ocean, you ain't taking no space up, and you're feeding the animals fish. They dropped them all, man. They dropped them right up, so they can't bring them home. They just turn and just drop them in the ocean, you know. They put casings on their legs and everything, so they go down and stay down. The guy that eats them has got to be eating them down there underneath the water, you know. But no, that was one of them, you know, that they took off and they come back and they went too far. But we, as a fleet out there, again, we fought a little bit, see, but an aircraft carrier wasn't allowed to fire their guns at night. We could fire them during the day, but at nighttime, the only way we could fire guns that we definitely attacked, you know, right away. Because, see, and all the Japanese planes, when they came in, they wanted to get the aircraft carrier. They didn't want to get no damn cruiser, because them aircraft carriers got them planes to get them, you know. So they tried to get the aircraft carrier, so we couldn't fire our guns at night unless we were actually attacked, because they didn't want the Japanese to see the aircraft carrier. But the Japanese had such damn good flares when they dropped them. I'll tell you, they had the chaplain on the PA system telling him, you ought to see this up here. He was done. It's like daylight. It was like daylight. They dropped them flares, and then flares that lit that whole damn ocean up the way they dropped them, you know. And then they come in and try to hit you, bomb me and everything. Yeah, I said, well, listen, I can't think of that place because we spent 63 days. I know it was on that. The only thing you could go down if you had to go to the bathroom. But they brought food up to you and everything, water, and you was there. And you had what they call condition 1 easy. You slept there, and you was on the same gun, and I was on her lookout, and you watched while I slept, and then when they wake up, you slept, and I watched, you know, but you'd never leave that area up there. You stayed up there.
What did you think of General MacArthur?
Hmm?
What did you think of General MacArthur?
Oh, what?
What did you think about General MacArthur?
What did I think about what? I'm going to tell you the truth. I ain't going to beat around the bushes. Just like I was telling you, I want to be near the captain. I want to be near the admiral, because I know they ain't going down with this damn ship. And General MacArthur was over there, and he should have stayed over there and fought them, because he wasn't nobody that really directed the fight or did the winning or anything. He left there, and they left Wainwright over there. And poor old General Wainwright, he had a fight over there, and then they had this guy I go to, a doctor. He was over there, and he took care of him. I went to him, and I had my tonsils taken out when I was 39 years old, and I had my sinus treated. They go up your nose, and they call it tungsten antrim, and he was out over in Covington there on Madison Avenue, 7th Madison, and he was one good doctor, and he was in on that battalion death march, they call it, and he was on, and they, what you calling about MacArthur, they had a plane come in, they got him off of there so he didn't have to get caught or anything else. Then after all the ships, like I was talking, I belonged to the fleet, and they called it what they called fleet number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. They were all the same. And this, when they worked in different areas, I mean, they called them fleet 1, 2, and they would get in there and fight. But I mean, they was there, they didn't move, and they stayed there. I don't care, admirals or anything. They did bring some changes in. We got changes like you see there. We had captains come in, and while they were there, they made them admirals, you know, after they was so long aboard ship. Then we got a captain that he wasn't allowed to do what he did. He allowed giving us beer at our lunch, and you ain't allowed to do that in the Navy. And they got him, instead of him getting up above, they cut his rank, I think. He was an Irishman, captain below, you know. He cut his ranks, but he's really nice. But all ours really, when the kamikazes came around, and I was up there and I seen all of them one around. And it was just lucky that, you know, they didn't hit us, they hit the walls like they did. And I watched them throw the boys over the side and everything. We had the same thing, you know, but they didn't hit us. We lost more ourselves than we did the Japanese. I mean, when I was on there, because they'd come in and they couldn't jettison the bombs, they couldn't do this and this and that. And it would kill some of the people on board the ship. And we was in with our planes taken off, because we would they would never take all their planes off the ship. And it's like, you might have seen this picture, they showed the Japanese and that, and they wanted to take off more, and he said, oh, no. He said, they might have some planes coming here, we gotta have our fighter planes, you know. So if they come here, then we can launch them fighter planes to take care of them, so they don't bomb us, you know. And this is the way with all them ships, they kept so many planes on there so that they could fight and protect themselves.
How did you react to the news about Germany invading Poland and the rest of Europe?
Invaded what?
Invaded Poland and the rest of Europe.
Oh, invaded Pearl Harbor?
No. How did you react to the news about Germany invading Poland and the rest of Europe?
Oh, invading Poland. There's something over there. Well, I had my guy that lives right next door to you up there, and he was saying, he asked me, he was in college then, and he said, Grandpa, he said, tell me something. He said, what did you people in the Navy and the Army, I said, we pretty much thought the same thing. What did you think about Hitler, the way he did the Jews? I said, Ryan, I'll tell you something, but don't say I said it, and that's pretty true. I said, actually, they didn't give a damn, but they didn't like the way he did it. They would have liked it if he'd have shot them all, but he said they didn't like the way he burned kids and everything. They said that they was glad to get rid of him because, like, he got rid of them over there, and I don't know, I wasn't in there, but he said, the Jews, again, we all can do it, but the Jews are such a country that once they're around, they got all the money. They got everything accounts, and they never own the damn state that you're in or whatever it is, and that's the way with Germany over there. They never owned the Germany. So he got rid of the damn Jews, and well, he wound up in it. And he was damn good, because he, just imagine, it was like, you know, we'd have states like when we had the Civil War. If we'd all stayed states like Kentucky and Ohio, we'd have been fighting like that, fighting each other. See, and Germany went ahead and was like that, and they went ahead and they took Poland, they took France, they would have took England too. I mean, they would have stopped them. They were coming, boy. It was a damn good fighting thing. Everything over there, and I wasn't there, but I know from reading about it. I mean, you see these intersect 271, 275, 471, 75. We didn't have nothing like that. Germany had all that back there in World War II. They had that. I mean, they could move their stuff. They had it. They were smart. I mean, the whole damn German people were. I mean, when it comes to, like, later on, when we start launching these guys up there, Russian got one of the Germans over there that they got first with Sputnik and everything, because the German people was the ones that knew about that. And they was getting rid of them, and the war was ending just before Germany got all this, because Germany was, you know, launching bombs and everything. You know, they'd launch them like a plane and take off and get you. Hell, they had everything, the Germans did. And, I mean, they're damn lucky they beat the Germans. Oh, they were rough.
Can you describe where you were or what you were doing when the news came that the war was over?
You may have already talked about that, but when you were talking about you were in San Francisco, but
Please?
you were already talking about how you were in San Francisco when the news came that the war was over.
Yeah, when we came back after the war was over and hit San Francisco, and you wouldn't believe our people. Our people, just like me, was so damn glad to get the hell out of the service. I mean, they all were that way. And you know, all the stuff like the Navy bought all their stuff. I bought all my clothes, I bought my shoes. And the Army, I think they had it given to them, you know. But we bought it, you know, we bought what we wanted. And when them Navy guys that all left, and they were getting discharged, they left their damn sea bag full of clothes, and they had their hammocks, you know, that they put up. It was really nice. They left the hammock, and we cleaned them place up. And I was sending stuff home, you know, that they left, you know. You didn't, oh man, damn, everything was really nice that they left it. And when they was out at sea and they was coming home, they were discharged, you know what they did? They was throwing their damn sea bag and everything overboard, just into the ocean. They just wanted to get the hell out of there, and they wanted no part of anything. I couldn't believe they was doing that for it. I took mine home with me, what I had.
All right, that's all my questions.
Hmm?
That's all my questions for the interview's over.
I hope I helped you out.
Good job. Okay.